Previously on the GTO build, it's been so long I can't even remember what we did. Then again, what haven't we done yet? Previously on the GTO build, we bought somebody else's project, took it home, took the body off, painted the frame, reassembled the engine, dynoed the engine, installed the engine in the painted frame, rebuilt the entire front suspension, put the body back on again, fixed our gaps, pulled the body back off, did some more welding, put the body back on again, got quarter panels put on at the auto body down the shop, then took it back home again. The next step is to finish the last little bit of welding on the trunk and then disassemble the whole car again, paint the inside, assemble it again. We'll head over to Lyell exhaust in another few weeks. We'll be driving it this summer. All right, back on the GTO. I gotta get this thing out for a couple of reasons. Hoogie's getting married. We need to either drive the car for the wedding or sell the car so we can pay for the wedding. I don't know what order that's gonna be in, but we need to finish this car. So much has happened since we kind of stalled on this car, including the body shop that did the corridors. The owner is retiring and nobody's taking over the body shop. So I'm gonna lose the guys that I really wanted to paint this car. That might be good or bad if they don't have any work. I might be able to grab one of the guys to really fine tune this car after we're done. I actually had to go through some of the other videos to see where we left off. And where we did leave off is I finished all the rockers and the butt welding on the inside. That looks good. We do a little bit there when the door is off, but we had to make sure that these gaps were right for the door. Got the door closed nicely, and I got a little bit of welding to do on the tail panel here. So the water must have been sitting down in this little ledge here, so that's got to be replaced. But the rest of the tail panel is still good, and for 800 bucks, I could get a new tail panel, but it's a lot of work. Instead, I got this from Tuesday Auto Wreckers off of Pontiac there. It's got the same lip on it, and it's actually in really good shape. So, unfortunately, the piece I grabbed was longer. It must have been a wider car, but the profile's still the same. So what I'm gonna do is drill out these spot welds that hold it to this tail light bezel here on the inside, and then match the profile to the other side, and then cut a section out and go to the corner there. And this corner might actually even be all right. We'll see. I'll probably do it anyway just because, but this side definitely needs to be done. We'll just do it in 3 sections. So I welded the latch to the trunk floor there, and I'll cut these loose and then keep the profile perfect, lay it on top, cut the seam both at the same time like I usually do right there, and then start spot welding it. So very simple. Probably about the same amount of work as replacing the entire panel, except I save the cost of $800 panel. So here we go. Alright, so this spot right here, the light's not all shining on it, somebody must have dented it, and they just filled it up with Bondo. Even though there's no rust or anything there, it's Bondoed. So we're gonna remove this latch. I just tacked that in to keep the right height from the floor to the sill here. Now that the trunk is welded solid to the panel, can't really change, so I'll take these off, and then we'll just dolly this. Try to get that straight, see how we make out with that. Alright, so this is that other piece out of Tuesday's yard, and I gotta fix this little corner here. This is spot welded on the back, so we're gonna try and knock that off. I'll cut it into pieces, then the spot welds will come off easier. And then I'll cut it the way this one is this piece, which is what's rotten on the GTO, lays on top of this piece and is spot welded down underneath. This one is a little different, don't tell anybody, but we're gonna cut this one on the inside and do the exact same thing. Lay this good piece on top of here and then spot weld that down. It is a little rusty, but we've got all steel on the inside, all shiny steel once we hit it with a grinder. So it's much better than what we got. So this is what we're gonna do. All right, so that piece actually turned out fantastic. Lots of steel left. It didn't make the full corner, but that's okay. This piece here is still original. And then I drilled out the spot welds, peeled off all the old piece, then I vice gripped this piece right on top and cut both pieces at the same time. That way if your line is crooked, it doesn't matter, and that little gap is just enough to hold the weld nicely. Show you what I mean. I cut it both at the same time. Now I can just peel this off, and that other piece will just drop right in. Lots of steel left on that one. Look at that. Look at that. There it is. Perfect. Drill this face a couple spots and then spot weld it to here, which is what was original. And then this is still the original GTO. So the original trunk didn't change at all. Just, I made it 100% better. It's freezing rain outside on somebody's lawnmower. I got a split. It's freezing rain. Church is canceled. We're hoping to go take the girls out swimming this afternoon, but it doesn't look like the rain's letting up. So, time to go do something. Perfect day to just plug away with the welder a little bit. I'll probably run out of wire or gas in like half hour. Don't hang out inside for so long. So, I've got a block here. It was a 4.8 that was sitting on the shelf at V&R for a long time. Paid a couple $100 for it because I wanted the floating pistons and the I-beam rods out of this. This is a 2005 block. It was literally brand new. I don't know what the purpose of this was. The inside was spotless. Like, I doubt this was ever actually in a vehicle. I think my theory is that they put it on a stand somewhere or ran it on a dyno or something, or it was in for a very short time because they didn't use antifreeze. And what happens when you don't use antifreeze is the ports get really, really rusty. And you see that? It's pretty gross inside there. So my solution to that is going to the local feed store and grabbing some molasses and putting it in a barrel, letting it sit for a week. That way I don't have to do anything at all, and all that rust will be gone. So I made a video on the Commander. I actually dunked an entire car in a giant tub of molasses once and stripped the whole thing clean. Pretty cool, check that out. But I also need to do all the seat rails for the GTO. So we're gonna put the seat rails in at the same time as we do this block in about a week or two. I don't think I need to fill the whole thing up, so it'll be a little more concentrated. 1 to 10 is fine, mixed with water. If you do it a little bit more potent, it'll act a little faster. So we're gonna dunk that engine in the barrel, fill it up with molasses, add all the seat rails, any other parts that need to be stripped for the GTO yet, clean up that little corner, and then roll out the GTO, do a little bit of welding on that. I finished one big job, it's gone. The Mercedes is next, but the GTO, it's a fight over who is gonna be more pissed off at me. So right now, it's the GTO. That can head off the paint. We found somebody to paint it. And then we'll keep plugging away a little at the Mercedes. So anyway, we're back to this thing. Here we go. We just got a heart from Jesse Coombs. Nice. Better not tell my wife about that. Yuck. It's like honey. Oh, I miss that smell. my shop smelled like that. It's like a licorice or a brewery, one of those. A mix between licorice and a brewery. Oh, I'm sure that's good for it. Oh, maybe double check that your barrel isn't leaking. Let's add some water. I guess I could have thought that through a little better. I understand why I'm always filthy. Okay, so this is the seat rail of the GTO. And the nice thing is you don't have to worry about the chrome or anything. It doesn't hurt it. I left the Fleet Master chrome in there for 6 months or so just to see what it would do. I had some extra, and eventually it does take the chrome off. But for a couple weeks, that's not a problem. I was cleaning up my scrap bin, and I found these, and apparently from the Audi, these are expensive. So I like selling expensive things. Let's put these in here. See what that does. There, sort of ish. I'll rotate it every couple days. The other one's in all the way. Last time, I think. Let's call this the last time that body's off. All right, so pulled the body off the one last time, I think. It's on the Rotisserie. That gives us access to here again. I can actually work nicely putting the radiator in. We could put our exhaust in, put our transmission back in. We'll have a separate video on how to rebuild Turbo 400. Put the fuel tank in. Now we got the tank off the Chevelle. I don't know, I think it was a Chevelle or a Nova. It looked like the right one. I don't know if anybody could chime in whether that's gonna work or not. I thought these were the same as the Chevelles, but I could be wrong. Now that the body's on the Rotisserie, it's nice to rotate it a whole bunch of times, get all the sand out. Vacuumed it out about 3-4 times already, and you can see it just keeps coming and coming. So we'll blow it out every chance we get. So basically everything that we've done so far is just to get it strong enough that it can go on the Rotisserie without changing the physical structure of the car, making the gaps go wonky and that. We've got all our floor braces welded in, and they're secured enough, but not because we did that from the top down. You can see we got good penetration there on each one of these. There's a couple spots here, and I think I just did a few. So we'll drill these. We'll drill some spots on the inner rocker to weld to the outer rocker. This is what you get with the aftermarket. It does take that turn, but for some reason this rocker doesn't. So we'll mate those up nice, finish them off. Once we're happy with all the welding, then we'll epoxy prime it with a sealer, and all it means is putting a reducer in it so that it's thinner. The paint kind of runs and kind of creeps into all the seams. Once that's done, we'll seam seal it, then we'll paint the bottom black, we'll paint the inside black. We'll do a nice single stage paint on the bottom and on the firewall. We did most of this over the weekend, but I gotta get back on customer stuff. So just trying to make a little dent in this again, and figure out some parts with the frame for that, like the exhaust and whatever else. So eventually we are going to be driving this car, so here we go. Okay, see how the rocker is just, the outer rocker is out just a hair farther. Well, it gets worse as we go. It's quite significant in the middle there. So I made this tool, it's patent pending, which is an Allen key in that hole with a pair of vice grips holding the Allen key, with another pair of vice grips holding that vice grip. And then you just take your knee and then you just kind of lean against it. See how it fixes that? Then you take another pair of vice grips, and then you take your welder. I did all that with one hand. That's right. Okay, so a few problems have arose while we're working with this. A couple parts that are missing, like the driver's rail for the door, like the window glass. Somebody, I'm gonna try and find you again in emails. You said you had one. So we gotta get that figured out. We got this rad with it, which is all fine and dandy, except it's the wrong rad. The filler neck has to be right about here. And then there's a cover that goes over top. Can't have that one. If somebody wants a rad, it's brand new as far as I know. We have the original rad, but it's not in good enough shape to use again, so we might have to recore that, because I think the cheapest one that I saw online was like $1,000 for another rad, and we're not doing that. The deal with the car is that I'm doing all the work and Hoogie's paying for the materials. And he's like, so that's about it, right? We don't need anything else. I convinced him to buy the trim, which I knew we needed. Thanks to AIM, who gave us a really good deal on it because of the YouTube channel. That's great. We have an exhaust for it, but the exhaust is, well, is not up to spec for what we wanted to do. Half cobbled together, it's dirty. So while we were at Motorama, we thought, well, we'll cruise around and we'll see if there's anybody interesting to talk to. And we met quite a few people, actually. So one of them is Lyell Stainless Exhaust in Burlington on Harvester Road. And they do everything custom exhaust. Everything is made in-house. So we wanted to shake their hands and see what they all had to do and what to offer. And they just got a CNC mandrel bender. So what that allows you to do is, for something pre-made like a GTO, they can punch it in and they can make it, or they have a machine that actually measures existing exhaust. If you've done something custom, like even the Mercedes or whatever, the CNC will just copy that. You can send them something like an electric fence or something in a pool noodle, bend it to the way you want, or like flex pipe, get it into the shape you want, give it to them, they'll measure it, and then the CNC will be able to make it exactly the same. But you don't get the kinks in the exhaust like a normal exhaust bender would. It's a very expensive machine, and it does the mandrel bending, so it's a smooth radius all the way around. It's gonna help us out with whatever exhaust systems we need to make from here on in. So the C10 is gonna be completely custom, and that's what we're all about, just making it ourselves. For now, they're gonna help us out with the GTO. So we went out down their shop, and really cool setup. Guys exactly like us, hardworking, dirty hands, dirty clothes, the shop's noisy. So far, we're really happy with it, so let's check it out. Look at that, that's what it's gonna look like. Nice. So here at Lyell's in Burlington, and they made this from scratch for the GTO. We've got the 2.5 coming out of the headers, going to an X, and then we're gonna bump it up to the mufflers that they make in-house, and then they'll bend up the piece going up over the axle and coming out the back. We'll dump it on the outside of the frame behind the bumper, and then once we have it all set exactly how we want it, then we're gonna send it up to a tank to get polished, and it's gonna turn out pretty sweet, pretty excited. So, here we go. All right, so exhausts are kind of a funny thing, and when I say funny, I mean frustrating, because if you're working on a car, your generic car, you can be close, you can take your old rusted piece to exhaust shop and they can bend it up. When you start from scratch, it's a whole different animal. So Lyell's is easy to work with in the fact that they have a general idea of what you're building, and so we told them, you know, we have a 67 GTO and we need an exhaust for it. He goes, okay, take all these pieces and mock it up, get it close to, pretty well lay it out exactly the way you want it. Don't weld anything solid. We'll take it back after you've got everything figured out, and we'll weld it together, and then we'll dip it. So we're excited about that process. So while I was there, he just quickly pumped out some pieces for us. So what we're ending up with is a 2.5 inch exhaust that goes into an X. Now I wanted it parallel. I'm fussy. This is gonna be a really nice car when we're done. And even just staring at the back, I want to make sure that everything's parallel, that it's symmetrical coming out over the axles, that the mufflers are in the right spot. So what we did was we started with a bend on a 45 that collects into an X, but I still wanted it straight underneath the hump where it goes underneath the transmission mount. So even having your angle off slightly doesn't have it end up centered into the header, or your angle's off a little bit, which ends up throwing the whole thing off, and it just doesn't look as professional. So he bent up a nice piece to raise up the mufflers just slightly, so they're basically up into the frame rails, so you don't see it when you're looking underneath the car. And now I can figure out where I want my bend to end up back into the X again. Once we have that, I know that those are good to go. We're going to take our old tailpipe and I put it in. The one isn't even close to where I want it to be, and this one's not bad. The hump is pretty centered over the axle here. It's not hitting anything. We'll only go farther away from the exhaust than closer. So because the exhaust isn't perfectly parallel to the frame, I'm going to cut it right here and then bend it where I want it to be and just twist it a little bit, so I know that this tailpipe is pointing 100% straight down. The other tailpipe isn't even close to it to being right. I don't like where the angles are, so what we can do is just bring the one pipe, and they're able to invert all the measurements to make the right tailpipe off of the measurements from the left tailpipe. So I know that that left pipe is going to be exactly the same as the right pipe. Unfortunately, we're night owls. It's late already. It's getting close to the weekend, so that's not going to happen this weekend, but it's definitely going to happen for the next one. Pretty excited about everything that they're going to do. They're also going to help us out with all our other projects because everything's custom. So because of that, we'll show you guys what we can do with scrap pipes to just weld up something. They'll trace it and they'll pump it out for us. They're gonna help out with the C10 and whatever else is next there. Got a bunch of cool stuff coming up, so yeah. I know you guys have been wanting this GTO update for a while. Here it is. We got a lot done actually in a short amount of time. The summer will be over before we know it, and we need this car. There's no more joking around. Hoogie's getting married, and we need this for the bachelor party. We need this to get to church in time, and we need it just maybe even to pay for the wedding. We are building this car to 100% to the best of our abilities, and that's not cutting any corners. That's not putting Bondo over top of little pinholes and stuff. It's cutting out every piece of steel that's rotten in that car and welding it in, butt welding it, making pieces that don't even exist, like these little corner panels here with the factory lip on it, the pillar over there. If you guys don't know much about this project, go back to the early. We've actually had this car since before the YouTube channel actually started, and we've repaired every single thing that there is to fix on this car. This car was about as bad as it could get, and we're taking pride in doing it right. We'll have another video coming up soon because we'll have the exhaust finished. We're going to be rebuilding that Turbo 400 and then painting it silver along with the drive shaft and the fuel tank, and then finishing up the last little bit of welding and getting into splashing some paint on that car. Now, if any of you guys have ever done a project like this before, and if you guys have been following this build from the start as to how much time you think I've got into this car, it gets out of hand real fast, and I know within a couple hundred hours of how much time it takes to do all the welding, and we redid the whole suspension, dynoed the engine, and also comment as to how much time you think I've got left into it. I also want to know what kind of projects you guys have been working on, how long and how many years you guys have been working on stuff, because it's a project car, 100%. It doesn't make any money, and it is just for the fun and the art of building a car. That being said, head over to the Facebook group if you're having trouble, if you need help with something, or you need some parts, or you're selling some leftover parts from your project. That's the place to go. Join that. Head over to Drive Tribe, which is a great platform for showing off your builds, finished or not. We like to post those so you can get encouragement from other builds and encourage other people at the same time, saying, you know what, this is what we've done this week, this month, this year, and this is what we got left to do. And seeing other people in the same boat, it's like jogging with your best friend. You do a lot more if you actually do it with somebody rather than by yourself. So thanks for watching. Check out the entire build and start to finish. It's pretty cool. The wedding is coming up fast, and we need this car for the wedding. So there will be more updates coming quickly. Thanks for sticking around. Here we go.